and good evening. It's December 11th, 2025, and welcome back to another season, another episode of Sons of the Father. We're continuing our discussions on The Chosen, Season 5, created by Dallas Jenkins, and tonight we're going to begin exploring Episode 4, The Same Coin. This is our Part 1. Because during this series, my dad, John Warren, my brother, Jim Warren, and I, we're going to converse. We're going to reflect on things that have impacted us as we've watched these episodes, and maybe unpack some thoughts. So, welcome to the Sons of the Father on the Dusty Feet. Our hope with the Dusty Feet is to foster discussion and to help build and support communities. If you're not already connected to a community or just want to share and interact, this community has 4 primary ways to interact. 1. TheDustyFeet.com. That's our primary place to find everything. You are always free to comment. 2. Substack. Link is in the description below. It's designed around the written and spoken text. It's a place to connect to ourselves and others. 3. Facebook at The Dusty Feet. These videos and other videos are also available for comment and discussion. 4. And as always, you're welcome to send an email to bob@thedustyfeet.com. These places, they will be moderated and guidelines will be set to ensure healthy, safe discussion. And as always on the Dusty Feet, this is a place where we can safely explore the endless ways of God and the interconnection of His creation. Belief understandings may be challenged, divine misunderstandings may exist, and traditional teachings might falter as we pursue connection, context, and community with God and each other here in an environment of grace and love. And before we forget, if you do find these kinds of podcasts useful, please, that is when you click that subscribe button. But those reminders, they just help you. But also, if you think these might be useful to others, that is when you click that like button, because that is how YouTube chooses to share these to more people if they wish. And also remember, we have all the previous seasons available for review and discussion on thedustyfeet.com. So, Season 5, Episode 4, The Same Coin. This is our Part 1. We always begin with a caution to ourselves because we must continue to remember this is a storyteller's tale. This is not a biblical recounting. So much is left unsaid in Scripture. We fill in blanks with our minds, each having most likely a slightly different rendering. These stories wrapped around stories. And I suspect we're going to find more stretching in this storytelling as we need to be aware of these rings, the differences between the story that's expressed in Scripture and the tale that's portrayed here. We will try our best to be careful. We want to be respectful as we wander this weaving of this wonderful season that is Season 5. Okay? This episode, I liked it. Okay? The story stretched us. They caused us to ask more than a few questions. That doesn't seem to match the pictures maybe that we might traditionally have, which I liked. And maybe upon further reflection, it might have us needing to reassess some of those traditional pictures that we have rolling around. Again, I ask you to read the various gospel accounts that surround these stories because more questions are going to come up. This could be interesting. With that, let's chat. Daddy-o.
Well, I again, it starts with the Last Supper, and this obviously it's a flashback sort of rendering of it, but it's really, I think, there's many things around that table. First of all, going back to what you said, they didn't sit in seats in chairs; they lounged on pillows. There were none of that then. But I got past that almost. And I have to continue to remember that only Jesus knows where this is heading.
Mm-hmm.
And as he's talking with them, and they're doing the repetition that they did around the table with different things, it wouldn't have changed the thing. It wouldn't have changed a thing. It wouldn't have changed a thing, sort of. And I didn't understand that at first. So I had to kind of, what in the world are they talking about? Because I didn't understand it.
Yeah, the Jewish
Uh,
Dainu, most people don't have exposure to. So, yeah,
yeah, I mean, I've never heard it preached or
yeah,
anything,
yeah.
and then it would have been enough, as Big
Hmm.
James said, because we have the Messiah, and that would have been enough. And so there was all sorts of things that um, Jesus was telling them, some things that were going to happen. They didn't understand. He got into it with um, telling Judas it was time for him to leave now. It's, you've you spend enough time, and you find out later that what happened before the Last Supper
Hmm.
was, and whether Judas ever came to him and said, "Look, if you will just do this, uh, things will be completely different than where you're headed."
Hmm.
And I thought it was interesting, Peter's interaction with Judas. And the thing that I
Hmm.
really caught me was, he said, "There you go again, making it about you." And there's so many times that I make it about me and not a gospel fact, but or not what Jesus said,
Hmm.
but what I wanted. And that's where they were at. I mean, let's face it. Um, and all around them, life is going on in Jerusalem,
Hmm.
just like it always did. The people that followed him, they didn't know what was happening.
Hmm.
All of these things that the life is happening. I don't know how else to put that.
Hmm. Yeah.
And yet, Jesus is headed in this direction. And I thought was interesting when he told John, when John said, "Was it Thomas?" Oh, that's not a scripture thing, but who knows? Could have happened. And then Jesus whispers to him what he said. It's the one I give the food to. He doesn't say a name. He just says the one I give the food to. And I know it's just like you guys have already said. There's so much here. You could just spend a whole time just on that. So, but as I'm rattling on now, James, it's your turn.
I'll call myself Little James.
Yeah.
We were at dinner the other night, and all of us, it was DeRay's in-laws and us for Corey's birthday, and all of us are like no higher than 5'5", and we said something about the little one, Corey being the shortest, and I said, "Well, we're all little. She's just the littlest of the littles." So, um,
Yeah.
it was it was funny watching the Last Supper section that they were showing here. Um, felt longer than the previous ones,
Hmm.
and obviously significance in what was being communicated and said was powerful. The um, the back and forth. It's funny in the Protestant churches that I've been in, there's not a lot of that kind of um, interaction in a congregation. It's usually pastors speaking the whole time, and we might do some worship singing, and that's it.
Hmm.
But there's something powerful about the didactic back and forth. That whole thing was about gratitude.
Hmm.
It was had
Hmm.
only this happened, that would have
Hmm.
been enough. Had only
Hmm.
this happened, that would have been enough.
Hmm.
And even Big James's comment at the end, which was, had he just built the temple and not sent the Messiah, it would have been enough.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
looking in our day and age right now, I mean, how many times in our lives have we seen people talk about, Jesus' second coming because of everything that's going on, and people are saying it again. And it's like, you know what? If he doesn't come in my lifetime, it'll still be enough.
Amen.
It doesn't have to come now.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
And so that was just one of those moments of, yeah, that's true. That's very true.
Yeah.
And for Jesus, Dad, like you said, he's the only one that knows what's going on, and the others are still trying to figure it out. And as we see Judas talking later on, he's like, he could have magically, had swords appear in everybody's hands, and we could have just, stormed the gates of Jerusalem and taken it back over again. And Peter, even in his lack of fully understanding everything, he's starting to catch that that's not the direction Jesus is moving. And he's starting to get the fact that this isn't about a hostile takeover of God's people, in their,
Wait, you muted yourself by accident.
Thank you. You're right. I accidentally hit that key.
There you go.
So it's not about them retaking their territory.
Right.
And so it's just interesting watching the realization of everybody as they start to, the lights are turning on. Oh, this isn't what we thought. But also there's more to this than we realized, in a good way, in what Jesus is actually doing in terms of transformation of lives kinds of stuff. And so it was fun to see the way it started with, like you said, this is the Last Supper that's happening later on, but we get a little glimpse of it, and then we get to see what leads up to it and all the things that are going on. And so I really like this episode a lot.
The Dayenu. So in Jewish synagogue services, okay, this interactive prayer is a regular thing. One of the things that David Foreman has helped me understand and grasp in is that sometimes that can become very mundane, routine, disengaged, even unengaged. Okay. And he is constantly bringing it back to, we need to understand why we're saying what we're saying, why the Dayenu, why these other prayers that he happens to be talking about is saying, why do we do this? Because we just stand there and we do our nodding, we do pray, and we're missing it if we don't get it, so to speak. So you get this to the point to where not only are they reciting the prayer, but you can tell that they're engaging in it, that they're starting to understand. Now, Jimmy, you mentioned something about Jesus transforming lives, okay? I want to caution that in the sense that that's a hindsight look. We weren't there in that time they're seeing it. They're not viewing it that way. They're not viewing it, well, the Messiah is really here just to transform lives. He's not here to take over this. That is the furthest thing from their mind. I think the timing or the how is getting them when they're realizing, and Jesus saying he's going away, and it's clicking. Matthew hasn't gotten it yet, because why are you crying was one of those good points. It's really not grasping yet. I agree. Peter is getting there. None of them are getting this transformed lives thing. That's really the whole point, which is ironically what his father asked for at the base of another mountain, right? Where he's after transforming their lives. He's giving them things that say, do this. This will transform your life. These things I'm giving to you will transform your life. Okay? So then we get to we fast forward to us, and sadly enough, some people say those things that were so life transforming, all of a sudden we don't want to do because they give them other labels like, I don't know, legalistic, right? And you go, you're missing the opportunity for life transforming stuff. And Jesus said the whole thing. My job is not to tell you not to do the life transforming stuff. I'm giving you a good example of what it looks like. Watch me. And then now you're seeing the service side of what it goes, the pain side of what it goes, the living life through things, what it goes. And they're getting a chance to see him respond in the outside the class, we're in Samuel talking about David, and one of the things that we keep talking about is watching the character of David. Okay, and the ups and downs. Yeah, David's got a bit of character as he goes through this thing, and he's not even coronated yet. And what's been going on just before the coronation, but you get to watch Jesus, and you get to watch him do this. What Dallas has done, I think, a fantastic job of, is showing Jesus's response and what he does. Again, one of the most favorite scenes that I have is the Good Samaritan is one of my great, where they flip the story, but also the walk the extra mile. I thought that was a brilliant episode, again, to show us the character of living through. Because if you're thinking you're overthrowing Rome, why in the world are we having this interaction?
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things to get, and I liked. So we're seeing this grow and develop in them as they're walking through these things. So I again, I like what those points are in the Dainu. I know that there are other Christian denominations that have more liturgy tied into their services, so there will be more interactive stuff again. And I've seen it where some people are engaged and not we are them, they are us. We're all the same, and how that plays out. So yeah, Dad coming from Catholic background would be very much so. So yeah.
Well, a couple of times we went up to the I don't know what you call them. Anyway, where the monks live there in
the monasteries?
California. We still live in California, monasteries.
Yeah.
And they did a lot. They did a lot of that. You know, in the morning they had their thing, and then at noontime, and then in the evening, and they would go through that. And it the first time I went, I'm going, oh, you know, please let me go back to my room, and then I started to realize how much this means to them, kind of what you're talking about, and I've never experienced that in any of the churches that I've that I've attended. But going back to the episode, when they switch back to the 3 days earlier, and the Pharisees are continuing to plan. They're not even together on this. They're each one is planning a little differently, and they're trying to get organized. And then Shmuel is he's just ticked, and he's building this. Are you kidding me? He is going up against, and what are you're from the Red Quarter, and all these kinds of things that he is bringing up, because on the inside, I don't believe he feels he really has an argument at all. I think it's all the matter you get. It means because you don't have anything to really lock what you're saying onto. So you figure if I
that's
yell
definitely a mirror
louder,
statement. Yeah, I agree.
yeah, intimidate people, and so and Yusuf, you know, he tries his best, but he's scared that they're going to kick him out, and then he's not going to have any of what he's hoping to sway their thinking. I thought it was the thing that was interesting to me was when Mary gets in Shmuel's face. You know, I I am Mary from Magdala, and I'm, and she straightens him out, and he's kind of taken back by that, because women don't talk like that in that day, especially to a Pharisee, to a ruler of some sorts. And so there's all kinds of stories going on. Um, and Raymond's father is don't worry about it. We got a plan. Everybody's got a plan, but nobody's got a plan, because that's it's really interesting because we are looking back. We know what happens, but like you said earlier, they don't have a clue of what's going to go on.
Mm-hmm.
And so, why wouldn't you make plans? We're going to do this and we're going to do this. We're going to try to catch him up. And then it goes over to Caiaphas, and he's got the plan. That that guy is really well cast, I think, in his role, because he really makes you dislike him. And, but I like you guys. I'm interested, and I've seen it 3 times, and I will go back and watch it again when we go into the next section. But uh, go ahead, guys. I'm through for now.
One of the things that stood out to me as they were sitting at the table, and Jesus says, I'm giving you a new commandment.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard this before, and I've heard him, I've read the scriptures, and he does say this. This isn't conjecture here. This is actual.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, this is a new commandment, that you love one another.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like I stopped and I went, wait a minute. He talks about loving each other in the Old Testament.
Mm-hmm.
What is new about
Mm-hmm.
this?
Mm-hmm.
And it made me have to go back and look, what do others say is the difference in terms of what he was referring to?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be interested in your take on this, but that, even the whole love your neighbor as yourself,
Mm-hmm.
there's still a self-love thing in there. It's like, I'm going to love you the same way I love myself. Jesus's type of love that he was expressing to them, they have not seen it to its full extent yet in
Okay.
terms of his sacrifice,
Mm-hmm.
where he gives
Okay.
of himself selflessly.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what he's referring to
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
in terms of that kind of love.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different kind of love
Mm-hmm.
that we're talking about here. I heard a thing recently. It was a panel of leaders talking about being a leader is very painful, and it calls for sacrifice and suffering if you're a good leader. And Jesus's style of leadership was that of sacrifice and suffering.
Mm-hmm.
Is that I know that that's what it's going to cost me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he was expressing to them. And so, for them to hear that, I'm sure it probably threw them a little, because they know about love.
Mm-hmm.
They get that. They've heard it before.
Mm-hmm.
But the way he was talking about it, I'm sure made them kind of go, okay, I don't fully understand this. And they won't
Mm-hmm.
until
Mm-hmm.
he gives that ultimate expression of love. And he talks, he says, if you die, the greatest commandment or the greatest expression of it is if, someone dies for their friend.
Mm-hmm.
That's the ultimate expression.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're talking about here. So it's fun. Bob, you said it too. The way Dallas sometimes frames things gets you going to go, oh, I hadn't really looked at it that way. Or, oh, I love that take on it.
Mm-hmm.
That really helps me or helps us to, gain clarity on what Jesus was referring to.
Yeah. So during the episode, he does say, I give you a new commandment. But then he does continue to say, well, it's not new, because he does refer back to his father. So that's interesting, because he actually does that. Because Jimmy, what you're saying, I think, is one of those things where it's like, what do you think? And so he even lets the character that he's created with Jesus address that a bit.
Right.
So okay, so this is something to think about. You want my take on it? So, something to think about. So God gave them these life-giving, life-transforming instructions. These are meant to make your life so different that people from the outside looking in would say. Now, I've asked the question, show me the commandments, the instructions, things we call them Torah, law, okay, that don't express love, whether it's to God or to man. Help me, on that. I have yet to find one. Not a single one. So I'm asking people, if you got them, please bring it out, because I'd like to be able to do that. There's a lot, and there's a lot said in there. That said, it had been now thousands of years. And so traditions, concepts, these kind of things have all developed and grown. And it had become not love. We have this point where there's a point where the disciples say that you will recognize me by what? Recognize you're a disciple. It's not apologetics. It's not defending the faith. It's what? It's love. And he says, how do we see that? We've seen that in the care of widows, poor, or orphans, those that are in need. That's the recognition. It doesn't come from wearing an amulet. It doesn't come from any of that stuff. It doesn't come from a t-shirt or a hat or bumper stickers or even saying it. You can say it all day.
Yeah.
But if somebody looks back on your life, how many times have I heard at a eulogy, they were a good person, they were a nice person, da 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 da. And I asked that, and it just makes me think when you have, and rather than the go, don't talk about my nice. If it's possible to say he loves somebody, if that's something that could be said, that would be a challenge. That changes how you would approach things. And that's, I think, what Jesus is asking everybody to do, to be recognized differently. And so what does that look like, being recognized differently? And he's saying, you're the Messiah, you're my follower, so I'm giving you a good example of what it is to be. And none of it, again, this is what we see Judas having the problem with, is that his is the most extreme example, which is interesting because Z doesn't get on board with Judas. You would think that Z would be a champion of Judas, and Z's not. That fascinates me. Granted, they're telling a story. They get all that. I get it. But from the practicality of what your history is, that would be what you're asked for, because that's what they're asking for. The Zealots were all about overthrow Rome, give us our space back, and we get to see the very different part of what Jesus is saying here. So the new commandments, let me refresh this for you. He said, and so, yes, this is love, right? Now, so the new part, Jimmy, so here's all of that to say. The new part goes from that love your neighbor as yourself, right? So maybe that can get a little myopic, but I don't think anybody loves somebody like themselves. I honestly don't. I still think we don't understand that. Yeah. Okay. So he, like you just used the word, I loved it, that's why I'm going to use it, frames it. Okay. So he frames it differently, and he says sacrificial. In other words, it's not to the point of just loving yourself. It's giving something past yourself.
Yeah.
So he has, in a way, upped the ante, but his expectation isn't like the children of Israel back then. They're children. Literally in that they don't even understand, like here, right? And they're going, but now you've had X years, you've had my instructions. God has said, I've given you my will, my expectations, those life-giving things that you should be doing. And it's like, reflect them, live them, show them, and you're not. Let me remind you what it needs to look like. And Jesus says, on top of that love your neighbor as yourself, which I say, because he says that too. Jesus does. But I think, Jimmy, the framing difference is he throws sacrifice in there, and it's personal sacrifice. It's so easy for us to bring and lay it at the altar. We have that phrase we like to use, even in our churchy days. Bring it to the altar. I said, but there's no sacrifice there. Be different if there was a sacrifice.
Yeah.
Hence the wraparound, right? That just takes us full circle, right? So a different view of how Jesus is approaching how he wants to change these guys. These guys' lives need to change because he knows, like he said, I'm not going to be here. and you need to you need to make more people understand. So there's two phases they have to do. One, help the common guy understand, and then also you need to create more yous, meaning there's need to be, not everybody needs to be a Peter or a deal. I'm not of the ilk that if we let's use the word apostle over disciple just to make it easy. Okay. We're not all supposed to be apostles. That's a gift and that's given. We blur disciples and disciples. And I would say, we make that so muddy, that water is so dirty, it's even funny to say, hey, we have followers of, and then we have people that teach, and we have people that grow and things that do. We're not all supposed to be those. We're just regular Joes that are farmers and herdsmen and tradesmen of that day, whatever we are today. But we have these people that then we go and make more. Mine is to help you find a teacher that you can learn from and grow from and be that. That's my take on it anyways. Oh, that there. But and then the transition of the men to the Pharisees and Dad, they're plotting, but I like that Dallas is saying they're all over the place. They just want him, they want people to stop rallying around him. Some are as simple as, hey, well, we just need to show that we need to discredit him in some way. Yeah. And then that's the light side, let's call it. Then the darker side is we want to kill him. And there's guys in between. Well, we just need to die. We don't need to have the burden of being involved in killing somebody.
Yeah.
We just need to do that. So they are all over the place, right? As they're struggling on top of Yusuf, who is struggling with what if he is? His is what if he is? Because, Dad, you're right. The bark back that Shmuel gets him is he's not. And Yusuf's going, what if he is? Do we want to be, and that question brought up, do we want to be those guys that the prophets were talking about? Because we say this, we're not them, right? We love this statement. We're not them. We're not that guy in that story. And I'm going, yeah. What Dad was talking about earlier, it's like, oh my gosh, our churches, our guys at the front, they're wearing the wrong sandals. You know, they're not wearing the sandals of Jesus. They're wearing the other sandals. And we see it. Do we want to admit it? No. Is it true? Yeah. Is it painful? Yes. Is it sacrificial? Yes.
But I don't know if it's a case of not admitting it, because it's a case of not understanding it, not knowing it, not realizing it.
Very fair.
You know, that's
thank you.
The one of the things that jumped out at me was Mary is out there trying to tell people about Jesus. And that's what I did. You need to come to Jesus, because if you don't, you're going to go to hell. Or you need to do this, you need to do that. Rather than the guys that led me to the Lord, Harvey and Sam, they lived it. And that's what Jesus did. He lived it. He was, as you guys have said, showed, expressed love, explained it, all of that, and that's the thing that I have experienced for the last 50 years, and that is, they told me you got to come to Jesus, but they weren't modeling what that looked like. And you say, what I saw in Sam and Harvey, that's what I wanted. They, like I said, my wife was better looking. I made more money, and I thought I was better looking, but we won't go down that road.
That's
and
sacrificial.
Yet they were happier. They had more joy, and their relationship with Christ was different than mine. And I could not figure out what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I don't know if I told you this or not, but I actually got Sam's phone number and called him a couple of months ago. And Harvey, I think Harvey's dead.
Mm-hmm.
Um, those people my age are. Uh, but anyway, I called Sam and I told him, that you're the reason
Mm-hmm.
that I'm living for Christ today.
Mm-hmm.
Not go to church today,
Mm-hmm.
not, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm living for Christ
Yeah.
today because you modeled it. And Linda wasn't there and came in about 3/4 the way through the conversation. And when Sam was trying to catch her up, but uh, that's what I've been burdened with, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a good burden. It's not a heavy thing.
Mm-hmm.
That if God's everything that I'm saying is, why haven't I changed? Why aren't I living for Him? Why aren't I being that nice person?
Yeah, Jimmy, while he froze, Jimmy, your word is transformative. Yeah, that's the difference between and I don't care, Jewish synagogue, Catholic church, Baptist church. In other words, we'll just paint the gambit, okay, and say if you're just rote, it's not transformative. Very different. And I've met people in all of those phases that are living transformative lives. And it's a big difference. And you know what the weirdest thing is for me? This is what I've realized this probably in the last year. So it's not like it's been like this. When I've sat and looked back at those people and you look and you see it and you realize none of them have a problem with the other guy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That got me where I go, well, they don't have, and so it's like you could put the three of them in a room. They're fine. Because their transformative nature says that they're doing that. That's the life. That's the recognition part. That's the part it goes. I've seen people that go, well, if they're not doing this, and I'm even talking from a messianic standpoint. So trust me, this is a mirror holding, and it's brutal. It's ugly. If they're not doing this, it's not this. And I realize, whoa, 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 whoa. I believe that's not the defining factor. What we're recognized by, what somebody else can make the call. That's just how you're supposed to live your life. Do they recognize it as that? Because I have a feeling if you're not walking God's ways and it doesn't look like love, oh my gosh, that's a whole different ball of wax. That's a whole different way. If you're doing that and they're not feeling it, and that's, I think, what Jesus was bringing up to the leadership was the people around you, they're not feeling it.
Yeah.
And I think that's where he connected. Yeah. This rabbi that they're listening to is quoting the same scriptures. Trust me, he's not quoting the Gospels. He's not quoting Paul's letters. He's quoting his father's words, good source, and he's quoting David, and he's quoting the prophets, right? And all of those. And he's living out the examples that he's saying. And you're going,
he's living it out.
He's living it out, and if it would be enough. So it's obviously enough for them because he's not telling them, eventually you're going to get a couple extra books that are going to help you a little bit. And there's guys come around, he's got some letters, you're going to get a smattering of those. And that's like you have a stack of them, you threw them in the air. A couple lands, you pick them up, and those are the ones we have because we have so few in relation to what was written. And that's really what you need. And he goes, this is enough. Now, live it for the next iteration. We're 2,000 years later. Are we any better in the space that we're in than, say, the Pharisaical side there and what we're looking back from the Messiah standpoint? And I go, I'm not convinced. So that mirror, that ugly thing that we keep holding in our hands is which sandals am I wearing? And you look at the pictures and you go, which ones do I want? And the irony is I'm wearing this. You want to wear the sandals of the one that's taking off your sandals. That's hard. that will gut punch you. At least it does for me. So, wrap up. Anything as we get, because we basically got through the Dainu and some wraparound conversation. So it's good, and we've introduced the this dynamic that's going on with the Pharisees and such.
Right.
So we can expand more as we get in the next episodes. We'll expand more on that tension, okay, and Shmuel and Yusuf, because they're important.
Yep.
And then how we see that, and then we'll get to, if it's a second one in, next one or a third one, we want to get to the women. And Heather and I were talking about this. That's the penultimate dinner, right? Because we're leading to the Passover supper that's going on. I don't know why we end up, it's so repetitive and so important that it's a Passover. And yet we don't label it a Passover meal. We call it the Last Supper. And I'm going, and I wonder why they wanted to strip well, I know they stripped the Jewish side. They made Jesus non-Jewish. So they tearing that away. So as we go and embrace in that, and we get to hear the women's Dainu, and we'll get to talk into that, which will be fun. And that'll take us to some fun stuff. So we got other episodes to cover. Daddy, anything you want to wrap up in that?
I want to get you started again.
Yeah, no, I've got more, but it's stuff we can hold on to next time. We got plenty to talk about.
Yeah, there's good. This one, like I said, this is one episode that I think 2, 3, who knows, just because there's so much, not just in the story, but to make us ask questions about the story. And that's what I love so very, very much in these things. Hit that. I love buttons. Yeah. Help me here. There we go. So we need to remember those interactive resources that I mentioned at the front. They're available for you to ask questions, discuss any ideas or thoughts that arise, right? Because we'll be happy to consider any other ideas and concerns. Fair? Yeah. So again, thank you all. Shalom, shalom, and thanks for being with us tonight on another one of our fun Sons of the Father on the Dusty Feet.
Button's not working.